Next, we are diving into hereditary spherocytosis. This is what we call the rigid basketball blood disorder. It is characterized by an autosomal dominant inheritance, extravascular hemolysis, and a spleen pathology. Let's look at the clinical scenario. Imagine a patient profile of a 15-year-old male. His chief complaint is severe right upper quadrant colicky pain. In his history, he had severe neonatal jaundice that required phototherapy. On physical exam, we find scleral icterus or jaundice, along with massive splenomegaly. An ultrasound reveals cholelithiasis, which are gallstones. The big question here is, gallstones in a 15-year-old? Why? This brings us to the diagnostic tetrad. The tetrad consists of a teenager as the age of presentation, jaundice from bilirubin buildup in tissues, gallstones from chronic bilirubin excretion, and splenomegaly from splenic hypertrophy. You must memorize this specific cluster. If you see this exact pattern on the medical exam, you are looking at hereditary spherocytosis until proven otherwise. Now let's examine the architecture of a biconcave disc. The key concept is that normal RBCs maintain a massive surface area to volume ratio, allowing them to fold and squeeze through 3 micron wide slits in the splenic cords. This structure depends on tethers made of spectrin, ankyrin, band 3, and protein 4.2. The defect in hereditary spherocytosis is a genetic mutation that destroys these vital tethers. As a result, the lipid bilayer loses its anchor. Here is an exam cheat code for you regarding the missing tethers. Just remember, spherocytes are bad, period. This stands for S as a spectrin, A is ankyrin, which is the most common mutation, B is band 3, and P is protein 4.2. Keep this in mind for me. So what happens? The volume stays, but the surface area drops. In step 1, the unsupported lipid membrane pinches off in the bloodstream. In step 2, bleb by bleb, the cell systematically loses surface area while its internal volume remains unchanged. In step 3, the cell snaps into the only geometric shape with the smallest possible surface area for a given volume, a sphere. The result is a total loss of flexibility. The RBC is now a rigid basketball. Next, these cells enter the splenic slaughterhouse. We are talking about the 3 micron splenic cords. The mechanism at play is extravascular hemolysis. The trap is that splenic cords are exactly 3 microns wide. A rigid spherocyte cannot bend, fold, or twist to fit through them. Then comes the execution. Splenic macrophages immediately recognize the trapped, misshapen cell as abnormal and devour it. This leads to the clinical fallout. The root cause is that macrophages chronically destroy trapped RBCs. This splits into 3 branches. Branch 1 is biochemistry. Massive hemoglobin breakdown leads to an unconjugated bilirubin dump, causing jaundice. Branch 2 is gastroenterology. 15 years of excess bilirubin excreted into bile leads to black pigment, causing gallstones or cholelithiasis. Branch 3 is anatomy. The spleen works in chronic overdrive, eating cells, leading to massive hypertrophy known as splenomegaly. We must also talk about the viral shutdown. Here is a warning about the threat of parvovirus B19. The mechanism is that this virus targets the bone marrow, temporarily halting all new RBC production. The danger is severe because normal RBCs live for 120 days, but spherocytes are destroyed rapidly, living only 10 to 20 days. The outcome is that if the marrow factory shuts down for even 1 week, hemoglobin plummets to 0. This triggers a deadly aplastic crisis. Now let's look at the diagnostic evidence. For RBC indices, the MCV is normal or slightly low. However, the MCHC is increased. On a peripheral smear, you will see perfectly round, small red cells. Notice the complete absence of central pallor. The key insight is that the cell shrank in surface area, but the hemoglobin volume stayed the same. It is hyperconcentrated. Remember, a high MCHC equals spherocytosis. Moving on to the confirmatory testing matrix. First, the classic test is the osmotic fragility test. The action is to drop an RBC into hypotonic saline solution. A normal RBC absorbs water, expands, and survives. A spherocyte is already fully expanded into a tight sphere. Therefore, it bursts instantly upon water entry. The modern gold standard is the EMA binding test. This involves flow cytometry utilizing fluorescent eosin 5 maleimide dye. The target is that the dye specifically binds to the band 3 protein. The result is decreased fluorescence due to missing scaffolding. This is a heavy favorite on the USMLE. What about surgical intervention? The clinical reality is that we cannot fix the patient's genetics. The RBCs will always form as rigid spheres. The solution is a splenectomy. If you can't fix the cell, remove the executioner. The outcome is that spherocytes are permitted to float freely in circulation without being destroyed. The anemia completely resolves and the gallstones stop forming. Now let's look at a premium clinical dossier on life without a spleen. The concept is that the spleen functions as the body's RBC quality control inspector, physically plucking out nuclear and DNA remnants from circulating cells. The finding is that without a spleen, RBCs are allowed to circulate with discarded DNA fragments left inside them. The buzzword to know is Howell-Jolly bodies. This is the definitive hallmark of a post-splenectomy peripheral smear. Another premium clinical dossier covers the post-splenectomy protocol. The risk here is overwhelming post-splenectomy infection or OOPSI. Without splenic macrophages, the patient is highly vulnerable. The culprits are encapsulated bacteria. The required action is that the patient must be fully vaccinated weeks before the surgical removal of the spleen. Our big 3 checklist includes the pneumococcus, meningococcus, and Haemophilus influenzae type B vaccines. Finally, let's look at hereditary spherocytosis at a glance. The defect is an ankyrin or spectrin mutation causing broken tethers and a rigid spherical RBC. Clinically, the classic tetrad is a teenager with gallstones, jaundice, and splenomegaly. For labs, look for increased MCHC, a positive osmotic fragility test, and decreased EMA binding. The treatment is a splenectomy, which removes the site of extravascular hemolysis, and post-operatively, the smear shows Howell-Jolly bodies, and there is a high risk for encapsulated organisms requiring vaccines.